Great. So, welcome to the Fool Duel podcast. This is our second episode. We're covering Week 8 of the NFL slate. We'll talk a little NBA if we have some time, and we'll just see where it goes. Last time we recorded for an hour and 52 minutes, so we're going to try to keep it under an hour this week. Let's go fast. I am James Gale. You can follow me on Twitter at GoJPG.
And I am Ivan Lovegren. You can follow me on Twitter at Watch the Breaks. And those are also our player names in both FanDuel and DraftKings.
So if you want to challenge us, you can play against us. Just create a contest and challenge either Watch the Breaks or Go JPG or both of us if you want to create a tournament.
Yeah.
So,
and if we can get more than 14 views this week, we might actually do a league next week where everybody can get in for $1 or something, and maybe we'll do a little Fool Duel prize or something like that. So
you can also follow our Twitter account at Fool Duel. We've been really hammering that account, especially on game days. That's the account you want to follow. So yeah, let's get right into last week. Last week we played 2 games. We had a FanDuel game for $1. We had a DraftKings game for $1 that we talked about. I came out ahead in our FanDuel, although it was really, really close. It came down to the Sunday night game. I won. Yep. We'll have it up on the screen there for you. I won 143.6 to 139.5.
Literally, there was, I think, 10 points separating us going into this game, and I had Carson Palmer and Michael Floyd. James had Carson Palmer and Chris Cataranzo?
Chandler Catanzaro.
Chandler Catanzaro. So James won on the kicker, which is why I hate FanDuel. Solely because his kicker scored 8 points.
And that's my FanDuel strategy. If you're in like a smaller game or a double up or a smaller tournament, I'm a big fan of grabbing a piece of Monday night. And if you believe kicker is a crapshoot, like a lot of people do, just grab the kicker from Monday night. Give yourself an option to leapfrog or come back on somebody or hold off Ivan like I was able to do this
Solely
week.
won by the kicker. Piece of crap.
It happens. It happens. And it worked out for me this week.
So let's look at DraftKings, where in our head-to-head I creamed you by 9 points. You'll probably argue 8.96. But no, by 9 points, 185.3 to 176.34. Look at that lineup that I ran out. Freeman, Gurley, and Lamar Miller.
Yeah, that'll do it for you.
Yeah. So unlike FanDuel, where you only get the 2 running backs, I used my flex position to get that trifecta and the Rams D.
Yeah, you got to give Rams D a lot of credit that last week too, because they were great. They were a popular pick among a lot of people. I was foolish and thought I'd fade the Rams defense. And it did not work out. Philly only scored me 7 points. I was able to get you on receivers, and then I had Rivers over your Palmer, but I rolled out Joseph Randle. He killed me. He was the lowest point scorer in our entire matchup with 2.4 points. You had one pick had less than double-digit points, and that was Ben Watson with 9.9. And so...
Yeah, 9.9. He was 0.1 away.
Yeah, and when you roll out lineups like that, you're going to win a lot of the time when your players are in double digits. So
and that roster did help me on quite a few tournaments, but this is the real kicker. If you look and see, I had 2 lineups. I had a lineup in both FanDuel and DraftKings that lost by 0.2 points, just outside of the literally Carson Palmer kneeling the ball and losing 2 yards cost me scoring at the end of Monday night. Whereas if Crockett had gotten a touchdown and the game had gone into overtime, oh man, I would have dominated. That's killed me a lot though. I had the same thing with I had a Fitzpatrick, Decker, and Edelman going. So I was really hoping that game would go into overtime as they were driving that last second. Overtime is the fantasy football lineups hope.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? All your players go into overtime and score winning touchdowns.
Yeah. But I literally flip-flopped from last week in that I won on DraftKings and I lost on FanDuel, so I pretty much had a total wash this week. There goes Rizzo.
Oh, poor Rizzo. I did the same. What's that? Is that a oh, it's a tops bunt?
Yeah, giant. Came from the National Sports Collectors Convention.
Oh
We're
boy.
not nerds here.
I I did the only I did not win at all on DraftKings this week. I did not roll Joseph Randall into my other lineups, but I was in some. I had Andrew Luck, who was just too expensive. I could have easily played Rivers and done a lot better. And so my cash game did not. I didn't. I played a small amount of games on cash on DraftKings and FanDuel, so I didn't lose a ton of money, but I didn't win either. I won some. You were the only head-to-head I won on FanDuel over this past week. I also min cashed in some GPPs, which is not that great, but hey, they won. But so
Who knew you'd be treated to interior design on this episode of the Fool
yeah,
Duel
you did a
podcast?
good job. You did a good job there with
Yeah.
those.
So we always like to bring up a strategy point that we each have.
Yeah.
So James, since this week I may have won more money than you, even though you beat me in one game, let's hear your strategy point. And then nobody listened to it because he lost this week.
Well, I'll say that my strategy point this week is bankroll management, which kept me from losing
That's
a
fitting.
lot of money.
That is fitting.
And so bankroll management is just a lot of people talk about it. You hear about it a lot when people talk about DFS strategy. And bankroll management is just how you're managing the amount of money you have available to play. So I'll start off by saying this in that I'm still going with my original FanDuel deposit that I made in April when I started playing baseball games. I did the maximum amount to get a matching bonus, which is $200. And my entire FanDuel history, my record is 127 and 365 with $957.32 in winnings. So I'm in terms of winnings, I've won a bunch, but I haven't won enough to like win the lottery or anything. I've won enough to continuously play pretty much every day, and so I do that by managing my bankroll, being very very conservative. So what I do, and common bankroll management is you want more money going into games that you have a better chance of winning than just throwing all your money into tournaments. I think what happens with a lot of people is they see the commercial and they say, "Oh, I can win $1 million. I could win $500,000." It's just not going to happen.
Guilty.
Me too. When my first FanDuel game I ever played was the $25 Millie Maker in NBA, and I just got creamed. It was I pissed away $25, and so right away I learned, oh, what you want to do is you want to enter double ups, you want to enter head to heads, you want to give yourself a better chance to win, and you want to give yourself a better chance to not lose all your money. So for me, bankroll management is finding enough head to heads to where I think I have a good shot to win. So I budget out about and a lot of people say it's a percentage of your balance. So if you want, they'll say use 30% of your balance goes toward head-to-heads and double-ups, and then only put half of that, so 15% or less. 15% or less is what you want to put towards GPPs. Now I've modified that a bit, and I only use about 10% of my bankroll every week. I'm not trying to win life-changing money. I'm just trying to win a little bit of money, have a little bit of fun, and do better at this game so I'm better in the future.
So that's the
So
difference
that-
between us. I'm
yeah.
trying to win enough that I can actually play because if I don't win this week, I'm I've got 3 weeks of head-to-head games against you for $1 only left if I don't get some cash flow this week.
So,
But,
so basically what you want to do is you want to play more head-to-heads, double-ups, games that give you a better chance of winning. You're not going to win as much. You're not going to have the biggest return on your investment, but you will win and you will get money back and you'll continuously have money to play with.
And I can back that up as something that I've seen since I'm just now getting into taking other people's advice. I've seen that advice a lot just the last couple days reading blogs finally. And so that has me entered in my first $5 head to head with a random person. NBA this tonight. But this is about football. So my strategy point has nothing to do with money. It has to do with stacks, which we touched on last week. James enjoys a good stack.
Sure do.
But I stumbled upon one. A lot of people used it last week without realizing that it would be considered this, but the running back defense stack. Now, the strategy here is if the defense is playing well and the offense has built some sort of lead, they're going to turn to the running back. They're going to start feeding him the ball, running out the clock. And if you have a running back that can do that and actually get first downs, that's going to turn to your advantage. So last week we saw with the Rams and Todd Gurley, that was highly recommended by a lot of fantasy experts just because of the potential for each. But down the stretch, the lead that the defense built caused Todd Gurley to have even more carries than he might have had if they were behind. I'm employing that this week with I'm doing about half Rams, half Cardinals, and I like Chris Johnson. We'll get to that later. Last week you also could have seen it with T.J. Yeldon, where Bortles, even though it was an early game, Bortles would have been a hot pick, except in a span of 5 seconds he got 14 points from his defense, and all of a sudden there's less pressure to throw the ball. And so they turned to T.J. Yeldon for most of the second and third quarters just to try and run out the clock, control the ball, control the game. And so T.J. Yeldon ended up going off for the Jaguars, thanks in large part to the strength of their defense starting off the game. So that's sort of a strategy point that you can look for. Now, whether that starts with the running back and translates to the defense or starts with the defense and translates to the running back, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But yeah, just pay attention to stacks this week in regards to running back and defense.
Sure, and that was something I didn't really understand at first because I always saw a stack as two players that influence each other's point totals. So a quarterback throws a touchdown to a receiver, you're going to get points for the quarterback and the receiver. Whereas I immediately thought when you mentioned the running back defense, I was like, well, how does the running back give the defense points? Or how does the defense get the running back points? But I get what you're saying in that they're not going to they'll help each other score points, but when they do score points, it's not like both of them are getting those points.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and so that's
But it
why,
creates a situation
yes,
that encourages the use of the other.
yes,
And also, if they're up that much, that means that the opposing offense is going to start taking risks as well,
yes,
which then puts your defense in a higher reward situation.
yes,
So
makes perfect sense.
again, which is why, well, we haven't gotten to the Cardinals game yet, but just keep that in mind for later, kids. There will be a quiz. So this week's games, first off, fade, that's another, we'll do a quick vocabulary thing. We hear fade thrown around a lot as like avoiding somebody that's popular. But I believe the technical definition that I discovered this week on a couple things is has more to do with not playing something in a game. So, for example, a strategy point that some people do is a Thursday fade, where they'll enter the Thursday contests, but they won't play anybody from those games. And I actually did that with one this past week with my Freeman, Gurley, and Miller lineup. That was one of the lobbies that paid out. So this week, even though we're normal guys, we wake up late on Sunday. We don't rush to do our lineups, so we don't expect you to. We don't talk too much about the Thursday game or the early games in London. We're just doing standard fantasy football lineups for your DFS. But this week, I do just want to mention you don't want to play a Thursday lineup and not include some players from this game because it could possibly be a monster game. You got Dolphins, Patriots. We all know that the Patriots go crazy. We've seen the Dolphins starting to go crazy since they let Joe Philbin go. So if you enter that week, you got to expect some crossover with the players you play. Maybe take a flyer on Amendola, but you're going to see a lot of people are going to be playing Miller. A lot of people are going to be playing Gronk, Brady, Tannehill, Jarvis Landry.
Richard Matthews.
Richard Matthews, yeah. So expect that. And we do. What's the over under on the game?
The over under
775.
No, it's they have it right now at 50.5.
Yeah,
New,
50.
New England -8, and I bet you there's a lot of action coming in on the Dolphins because Patriots in the past haven't played that well in Miami. I don't necessarily believe that all that much. I
What's
think
that?
the Patriots are
Isn't
gonna
it
be
at
fine.
New England?
No, that's right. It's in New England.
Yeah.
My bad. So that line makes sense now.
A little
That
bit, but
I'd still be interested in the Dolphins
yeah.
with the points,
But all that
but
to say, just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
don't fade this week with that lobby. If
Yes,
you enter that lobby, pay attention to that game, or just avoid that lobby altogether.
yeah. That's my advice. I'm avoiding it altogether. But if I was in those games, I would definitely want a piece of what I thought was going to be a good play.
Yeah. So also coming on to the London game, we have Lions at Chiefs at Wembley Stadium. Since we're not going to talk about this game, I will not tell you that I do not like Charkondrick West because we're not talking about this game.
Nope.
So you didn't hear that Ivan doesn't like Charkondrick West. You did not hear that. So
What happened to Niall Davis? He was like the heir apparent. He was the one. He was the handcuff you were grabbing for Jamal Charles, and then
D Nile Davis.
yeah, I guess so.
But so Bucks at Falcons. Great way to start the week.
The
Love
line
this
is
game.
we got Atlanta -7.5 at home. The over under is 48.5.
Okay.
Who do you like on the Buccaneers?
On the Buccaneers, I don't like the Buccaneers. Doug Martin is what a lot of people will say to play, but the Falcons D I see have they've given up only 550 rushing yards all season, 3.7 yards per attempt, and this is a game where I expect the Falcons to go up early, which is going to put pressure on the Bucks. Like we said, with it's the opposite of that running back D stack. Doug Martin is not going to get the handoffs that he needs. He might get the passes out of the backfield, but not enough to justify his price tag. I just have him as a sit for the Bucks. There's a lot of other wisdom out there with a lot of other players. We could go into all of them, but I'm just going to say sit Doug Martin.
My Buccaneers play is it was Doug Martin until I looked at those numbers. The Falcons' rush defense has been solid. Yeah, only 78.6 yards per game, although they have given up 10 rushing touchdowns. My guess is that would be poor goal line, red zone defense.
You got to get there to give that up.
Yeah,
I don't see him getting down the field that much.
Yeah, Mike Evans would be my Buccaneers play. Atlanta's giving up 66.5 completion percentage rating to opposing quarterbacks. Mike Evans went off this last week against Washington. Atlanta has...
And they lost Vincent Jackson in that game, and he's out this week.
So you'd think Atlanta is going to scheme to stop Mike Evans. That being said, Mike Evans is really, really good. And he'd be my play. I'd want him in a tournament more than a cash game. His price is... he's priced as a fairly decent receiver. He's 7,800 on FanDuel.
Yeah, but you can get AJ Green or Julio Jones for that.
Exactly, and then he's also up there in price on DraftKings. I don't really see his. We don't want as much dead air. Yeah, 6,800 on DraftKings. He's a tournament play for me. I wouldn't roll him into a cash game, and I also wouldn't be super enthused about Mike Evans, although he has a chance to play well. For the Falcons, I think I like Julio Jones a lot against
9,200 on DraftKings.
So he'd be your big play or your big buy.
9,200 on FanDuel. Rare that we see that.
He's a monster. He's priced accordingly. I think he has a good shot to go off against a Tampa defense in Atlanta. The Tampa pass defense, they're giving up a 68.4 completion percentage rating to opposing quarterbacks, 220 yards per game through the air, and a quarterback rating of 111. So that makes me think that Matt Ryan would also be a decent play this week, too. Tampa has a fairly decent rush defense. They're only giving up 3.7 yards per carry. I know you like Devontae Freeman. You'll probably be using him a lot this week. If you were to ask me, I'd say the Falcons' passing game is going to benefit the most in this matchup.
I do agree, and I think Matt Ryan, something that I've mentioned last week and again this week, they beat those Titans by more than 10-7. That game had, I think, 2 times when on 4th down they went for it and didn't convert. There was a red zone interception. Just, again, things with little bounces not going their way. And I think that they're a disciplined team. They've got the weapons. So I think that the low totals that we've seen, and they still scored good points from a fantasy perspective,
Hmm.
um, but I see all that being reversed. So Matt Ryan is actually a good play in my book. And I hear what you're saying about Freeman. The difference being for me that Freeman is still one of the preeminent pass catching running backs, too. And so that's why I'm going with him again, because even if they can't, I think that they'll get up enough that they'll turn to the rush, but he's still a good passing option as well. And I really like at 2,700 in DraftKings, I like Jacob Tammy. He's been getting red zone looks the last couple weeks, hasn't been able to convert, which has been keeping his price down. But this is the kind of game where I see long sustained drives from them and switching it up in the end zone. Hankerson is out, so they have one less advantage there. Roddy White isn't quite the beast he used to be and going up for the jump ball, so I see red zone opportunities going to Jacob Tammy, especially trying to throw off the scent of Devontae Freeman. But you know,
I'm gonna correct you here quick. He's 48 on FanDuel, and then what'd you say? 27.
well, he's 27 on DraftKings. Yeah, I don't know.
27. Okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't derail
If you
you.
guys have listened enough to me, you know that I'm not always as into the FanDuel as I am the DraftKings. Those
Hmm.
damn kickers. But yeah, so I like that. I might have been run out just for fun in a tournament. A Tammy, Julio, Ryan, Freeman lineup.
Okay, yeah, big.
Use the old Fantasy Pros optimizer to see what else to throw in there. But so yeah, but I think that'll be a fun game. I like the Falcons a lot this year. They're actually my Super Bowl pick in the NFC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You heard it here first. I heard it here first. I didn't know that was your pick.
Yeah, but the other one that's a challenger that scares me, Cardinals at Browns.
Okay,
And
Cardinals at Browns.
honestly, let me go back to, not that we gamble on sports, 1-800 gambler if you have problems, or Google it. That is a serious issue. I feel like we should mention that every single time. We do this for entertainment. This is our entertainment budget. We're not doing this
Yes.
to get rich. We're not doing this as an investment.
That's why I said in my bankroll management thing, like I have $100 right now in my FanDuel account, and I will play 10 to 15 in a current weekend. So I'm not playing a lot of money.
Yeah. That said, the Falcons had a great line a few weeks ago. They were still at plus 2,300 for the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
someone in this lobby here may have taken them for that, and that may be why they're above the Cardinals on my list. But Cardinals at Browns, this is the Rams at Browns all over again. This is we'll get to our head-to-head lineups, but Chris Johnson in Cardinals D, handcuff, stack, whatever you want to call it. C2KJ is running with that chip on his shoulder that gave him back-to-back 2,000 yards or right on the cusp of that. Got that big contract with the Titans, and then the next year he played like a non-contract year player, and then they had the issues with Jeff Fisher and switched up everything. And it's like his renaissance is real, and I love him. I'm playing him this week, and I'm playing the Cardinals D against the Browns because that same thing where one or two turnovers switch the whole thing. I think the Browns are a dumpster fire now with McCown and Manziel. Not sure who's starting. Whoever starts, they've been playing high risk, high reward. They've come from behind in a lot of games. You know, they're doing a lot of slinging of the ball, which can pay off, but it can also pay off for the defense. And as we've discussed, I'm not as worried about points allowed as I am about turnovers, sacks. You get a quarterback who gets flushed out of the pocket a lot. Yeah, he's going to burn you on some rushing yards, but he's also going to get sacked.
I think probably one of the smartest things you can do in your cash games is to target running backs against the Cleveland defense. They have given up the most yards total this season, over 1,057 yards. No other team has given up more than 1,000. They're giving up 5.1 yards per carry, 151 yards per game on the ground. And that makes Chris Johnson at 7,300 on FanDuel. And
I think the same on
is
DraftKings.
he 73? No,
Right around there.
he's
Oh no,
40.
4,600. Oh my God.
So he's the play
I knew I
on
played him for a reason.
DraftKings, and you could also justify him on FanDuel. You, it's probably one of the easier and smarter plays you can make in cash games is to just target the Cleveland defense on the ground. That's who I'm playing from Arizona. I'm going to stay away from Carson Palmer and the passing game. I think they'll be fine, but that's all I think is that they'll be fine. and I can't really predict any huge games. On the other side of the ball for Cleveland, I think this is the week Gary Barnidge takes a dive. He was he was really good these past few weeks, but Cardinals against tight ends have only allowed 31 receptions for 255 yards, 0 touchdowns. Barnidge is he, Anthony.
Just like the Cubs.
Yeah, oh. That'll be Barnidge this week, though, so we'll just use that as some sort of a visual metaphor.
Nice.
That works.
Yep.
So Barnidge, I'm not playing Barnidge this week. I like him. I like his future. I like his role in the Browns offense. But I'm with you. I'm betting on that Cardinals defense, and I think that it'll be tough for the Browns to score more than 10 points. The line
How much do you wish that Patrick Peterson were somebody you could play, like that they had a punt returner category or a IDP category?
I would pick a player from this game on the Cardinals defense. Probably.
So we have 49ers at Rams. I know you have some strong Rams feelings that echo my feelings.
Well, the line is St. Louis minus 9.5 at home. The over/under is 39.5. It is the lowest over/under on the weekend. The points, I mean, it's
Well,
Gurley.
my whole thing,
Yeah.
we were talking before this. Who do the 49ers have that you would play? Who do you trust to
Their kicker
get receptions there?
Phil Dawson.
Phil Dawson. Phil Dawson indoors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably your play on the Niners until we see them do anything consistent. Kaepernick is just, whew, he's just
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, if I'm in a head-to-head and
Yeah.
I see my opponent starting Anquan Bolden or even Carlos Hyde, I'm not scared.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm not taking any piece of the Niners this week. For St. Louis, Ty Gurley is really great. He's awesome. He's the next big thing in running backs. He's going to be a top 5 pick next year in fantasy drafts. I think he's going to be probably up there in most owned running backs for the rest of the season, even if his price jumps to that Le'Veon Bell level. All you have to do is watch him play. He's just really good. He moves like a combination of Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson.
So what do you think about him at 6,300 in DraftKings?
I'm fading Todd Gurley this week.
Even at 6,300, you don't think he's
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't blame you for playing him. Personally, me though, I'm fading him. I don't think he's going to have this crazy week that he did last week. He'll still be productive. I'm starting him in season-long leagues if I have him.
See, and that's where I see this is my. I didn't start the Rams D. I'm flip-flopping between the Rams D and the Cardinals D, but I see the same stack here with Gurley and the Rams D because even if he only runs, if he runs for 130 yards and doesn't score a touchdown and has 5 receptions for 30 yards, like that's still over 20 points.
Yeah.
You know, you love that. And if the D can keep Kaepernick in check, and we've seen Kaepernick have 4 interception games with 2 pick sixes, and we saw the Rams D produce last week. So if I'm actually going to factor in the Rams D as that much potential, I have to go with Gurley, especially in DraftKings at 6,100. 8,100 in FanDuel, maybe stay away.
Yeah, he's a great cash game play. He's a really good cash game play. In tournaments, I just think so many people are going to be on him. San Francisco is a middle-of-the-pack defense, 4.4 yards per attempt allowed, 113 on the ground, 7 total touchdowns allowed this year on the ground. It's just kind of a middle-of-the-pack. I don't think Gurley is the number 1 point scorer at running back this week, but I do think I think he's just fine as a play. So we'll move on here now to the next game, which is Giants
at Saints.
Giants at Saints. The line it's New Orleans -3. Over/unders at 49. for the
which is a high over under.
That is high, and I like they could score some points this game. The Saints' defense isn't that great. You saw the Colts come back on them after a strong first half for the New Orleans defense, and the
Yeah, but that was still only 41, 27-14.
but hey, I mean they were able to move the ball down the field when Andrew
Or
Luck
was it
was able.
27-20 final score?
They scored. Yeah, because Hilton and Moncrief. Hilton
Yeah.
had two, and Moncrief had
So
one.
47.
Yeah.
But well, the trouble for me though with the Saints is, and I know you were high on Ingram last week, which ended up being a great play. But there's so many weapons at Drew Brees' disposal, and the Giants. I think that your goal is to spread the field on them. So a lot of experts have Willie Snead as a value play. I'm just mentioning that here. I'm kind of avoiding them as a whole team. But I do want to mention the other thing experts keep saying is Larry Donnell, Larry Donnell. And I've watched him play multiple games the last 2 seasons, and he has brick hands. I never want to play him. I never want to see him on my lineup. So just keep that in mind. He might get targets, but I have yet to see him really show that he should be doing anything but block.
I like on the Giants. I think Odell Beckham. If you want a one with upside, he's always a good play. He's 8,700 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings he is 8,500. So if you don't want Julio, you don't want DeAndre. I think Odell Beckham's a great play if you want to run out of one receiver. You saw Moncrief and Hilton were able to do things against the New Orleans defense last week. I thought New Orleans was a good matchup for rushing, and they are. They've allowed 4.9 yards per carry, 129 yards on the ground. Frank Gore really didn't take advantage of that. I think Rashad Jennings is worth a look.
Well, let me say too, watching the Giants game 2 weeks ago against the Eagles, or sorry, watching how the Panthers were able to beat the Eagles. It was on cutbacks. The Giants line looked horrible in that game, just in general, when they played the Eagles 2 weeks ago. Is Gore a cutback running back?
I don't think so. I watching a lot of Niners games these past few years, he just seems to be one of those guys that finds a hole and hits it. He's a what do they call that? A downhill runner.
Yeah,
And that's how I always saw him.
yeah.
So
Now is Jennings a cutback running back?
he can be. He hasn't done that well. I mean, this season, but he can make moves. He can.
Because I think if he has that ability, and I don't know why I said Eagles, I meant Saints. Saints line. But yeah. Anyways, sorry, I'm detracting from what you were saying, but I'm thinking it might be possible, even though I don't like his line, but he has a different running style than Gore.
Yeah. And if I'm just thinking about like potential game flow, I think Shane Vereen could be a player that you look at in this game, in that he's the pass catching running back on the Giants. He hasn't had, obviously, nowhere near the work that Jennings has had, but he had a game against San Francisco where he had 8 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown, along with 5 rushing attempts for 24 yards. So they're going to work Vereen in. He's the third down back. He could see some dump offs in a shootout if you think that's what's going to happen with the over under. I think I like Vereen a little bit more than Rashad Jennings. He's $200 more on DraftKings. So
you're saying the DraftKings likes him more too?
DraftKings does like him more, and in a point per reception game. So if I'm on DraftKings, I'm probably going to go Vereen. If I'm on FanDuel, I'll probably go Jennings.
A little appearance
That
by
said,
Mickey
those
there.
are tournament picks for me. What is that? Is that Rexford?
No, that's my knee.
Oh, that's your knee.
Showing some leg.
There you go.
Something else though too with that. We'll get off from this game pretty quick, but it is a high over under, and I don't think any of these defenses are very good. I'm afraid to pick Breeze's target, but Breeze might be a good play with all the
agree.
targets he has.
I agree. And if I were to pick one of his targets, it'd be Benjamin Watson. You mentioned him last week. He's getting work. He's getting looks in the passing game. He's cheap on DraftKings, 3,500, but in the last week against Indy, 4 receptions for 59 yards. The week before against Atlanta, 10 for 127 and a touchdown. I think, and if you listen to the broadcast, they said that the New Orleans and Sean Payton and the New Orleans offense, they like Benjamin Watson and his role and what he brings to the passing game. So if I had to pick New Orleans receiver, I'm going to pick Benjamin Watson, and I do like that Breeze pick. The New York Giants are giving up 66.7 completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. And not the best QB rating, 83.9, but that's still decent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Breeze is a fine choice this week.
So we have Vikings at Bears. Your team versus my team.
The line is even too. It's the second week in a row the Vikings have had an even line. It's the second lowest over/under at 42.5.
Ugh. I'm a Bears fan, and I know they're going to lose this game.
I'm not going to rule them out just because I've seen the Vikings play the Bears, and they've let the teams have been in games the past 2 weeks against the Vikings, and I think that'll be the case this week as well. The Bears will be in it until the end.
As a Bears fan, my only start from them is Bennett. Bennett gets red zone looks. He's Cutler's dump-off guy. I think that Cutler's going to be doing a lot of dumping off because I think that he's going to come out flat from the break. I don't see Jay Cutler as being the type of guy that studies more on a bye week. I see him trying to do a local commercial for a car dealership and maybe smoke a cigar. But so I don't like Forte. I don't like Jeffrey necessarily. They're not bad plays. They're just not love plays on my side. But I do love Bennett. He's right up there in that elite tight end category with Tyler Eifert and Travis Kelce. And then for the Vikings, I think that Adrian Peterson, he's gotten 27 and 22 carries the last 2 weeks. They're showing that they're not afraid to use him, and it really is with him. It's like the pickup artist game. It's all just a matter of numbers. He's getting the carries. All it takes is that one block to spring him. As we saw last week, really mediocre line, and then he springs off a 75-yard run that was almost a touchdown. And I think that there's something about playing the Bears that just is going to ignite him. So I really like him this week, more so than your darling, which is everyone's darling.
Stephon Diggs.
Darling Diggs.
I like Stephon Diggs a lot. I'm going to go back to the Bears real quick and say I also would only pick Bennett from the Bears offense. The Vikings have given up 33 receptions, 407 yards, 3 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. So if I had to pick a piece of the Bears offense, that's my pick, although Matt Forte gets the work, so he's always worthy consideration. On the Vikings, I would take Diggs over Peterson. Diggs looks really good. Teddy Bridgewater trusts him, and they'll throw it out. He runs all the routes. He ran a screen pass last week. They ran a little bubble screen on the inside to him. He ran a nice little out. He ran a nice little out and up, which got him his touchdown. And he got targeted. So in all those routes, and he made plays. So the Vikings. I see that out of the corner of my eye. The Chicago defense has allowed a 64.8 completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks and a 108.6 QB rating. Their rushing, they aren't that great either. 4.5 yards a carry, 124.8 yards on the ground. The reason I'm more of a fan of Diggs than Peterson is just because I don't like the Vikings' O-line. I think it's really banged up. They're having a lot of trouble. They're inconsistent. Peterson got stuffed on all of his goal line opportunities this last week. The Vikings had to get creative. They ran a nice little play action to Kyle Rudolph that got him a touchdown at the goal line. Peterson's really great. I think I like watching Todd Gurley more than Peterson at the moment. But Peterson's really good, and he's done well against the Bears in his career. He's just so expensive. So that's why I have Diggs over him. Now, Diggs' price went up pretty substantially in both games. He's at $6,700 on FanDuel. and then he's at
What, 5,800 on
he's at
DraftKings?
5,800 on DraftKings. I think I like him a little more on DraftKings. I think that's what the public will like him more at that price as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, Diggs is my pick on the Vikings. I think their defense is solid. I'm streaming them for the next couple weeks in season long leagues. I wouldn't use them this week on DraftKings. They're too expensive. So yeah, we'll just go with Diggs as
Yeah.
my one pick from the Vikings.
So now these next three, I'm going to echo myself. All three games. These are the ones I'm really excited about. First, we have Chargers at Ravens. Ravens last week, the picks were all Cardinals because Ravens have the worst passing defense in the league. I'm not sure if they're still technically 32nd. They might have moved to 31st or 30th, but whatever. They're the worst passing defense in the league. And Phillip Rivers, top 5 fantasy points per game this season out of quarterbacks right now. It's him, Brady, Dalton, Bortles. And I got to double check who the last one is, but I know that it might be Rodgers. I forget if Rivers is 4th or 5th on that, but coming in at 6,600 in DraftKings. In fact, the Chargers are a great DraftKings lineup here. You got Rivers at 6,600. You've got Danny Woodhead at 4,500. Probably impacted by the Melvin Gordon, well, he won't he? But it doesn't matter. Even when Melvin Gordon was playing, Woodhead was still getting as many targets, as many carries. And he's the outlet that Rivers goes to. He'll look down the field. He'll look for Keenan Allen. He'll look for Stevie Johnson, who's another hot slot play. But I absolutely love Rivers at 6,600 and Woodhead at 4,500 in cash or tournament. That frees up your money for the expensive Adrian Peterson, Matt Forte, Le'Veon Bell, whoever your expensive guys are. With Rivers put up 30 fantasy points last week. He's averaging, I think, 24 or 25, which, as an average for a quarterback, it's just ridiculous.
He throws a ton, and when you have Woodhead in as your running back,
120 attempts over the last 2 games.
when you have Woodhead as your running back, he's almost more of a shot to catch passes than run the ball. And so they'll, instead of running with him, they'll just throw to him,
Yeah.
dump offs, and
Though in the
Woodhead-
last 2 weeks, Woodhead carries and targets in the red zone is the most on the team.
Woodhead is. I'm going to echo that. Woodhead is probably one of the first players I'm entering into my lineups when I'm building either a cash game or a tournament. Especially on DraftKings, he's only $4,500. It's a great play. Keenan Allen, great play against that defense, especially in a point per reception. I think he should be priced a little higher on DraftKings with his upside this week. Stevie Johnson, great play. Tight ends, I'd probably wait before locking in a player.
Yeah.
Either of them are great options. Ladarius Green is going to be cheaper than Gates.
Yeah. So if you are fading that Thursday game, you don't want to plug either of these tight ends in your lineup.
Ravens have been decent against the tight end. They've given up 23 receptions for 255 yards and a touchdown. But Antonio Gates is really good, and he is a red zone target no matter what defense he's playing.
And I'd also factor in on the Ravens, they've played 2 teams that don't have a tight end. Maybe more.
That's true.
Just comes to mind that they've played the Cardinals and the Broncos, which just pretty much don't have tight ends for purposes.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the rest of their schedule to see more. But for the Ravens, though, I do have my kicker in our head-to-head. We'll get to that. But I do have Justin Tucker going for the Ravens. They're in that middle category. I know that you like one a lot for the price.
I like Justin Forsett a lot this week. I think the matchup's good. San Diego is giving up a league worst 5.3 yards per carry. They're second worst in total yards allowed on the ground, 925. 132 yards per game allowed. Justin Forsett, it hasn't lit the world on fire at all this year. I know a lot of people who drafted him in season-long leagues are pretty mad. But I think this is the week that he's going to get a decent amount of volume, and he could make the most of his 12 to 17 carries, and he could rack up 5 receptions for some yards. So his price on FanDuel has him at 6,900, which isn't
Yeah,
world beating.
6,100 on DraftKings.
Uh,
But you're right. I've seen the Chargers play because they're our local team here.
yeah,
So we get stuck
they'll
with
be
them
even
whenever
more
they're on.
local soon. Did you hear they
Yeah,
filed for
yeah,
relocation? Yeah.
yeah. Um, their run defense is not great.
No.
So that's something where a guy like Forsett could do like a 7 yards per carry sort of thing
Yeah.
on, not a lot. So I echo you there. And I did plug him in to one of my 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. only lineups.
I like him in tournaments more than in cash games this
Yeah.
week.
So then another barn burner for me, at least in my brain, Bengals at Steelers with another one of our top five quarterbacks, Andy Dalton, coming off a bye, who you say historically he's hit or miss off of a bye, and maybe that's why he's priced
Um,
at $6,000 on DraftKings.
yeah,
Top five quarterback at $6,000.
he's going to be all over cash lineups this week, I think. The Cincinnati's been playing really well. The O line grades out as a top O line. I don't have the numbers around me. I'm echoing something I heard on another podcast. But
You heard it here second on
exact
Fool Duel.
that's right. Uh, he has great weapons. He's got Marvin Jones. He's got AJ Green. He's got Mohamed Sanu, who I would probably not start in any leagues this week, but I really
Ever.
like. I like Mohamed Sanu. He's a great
You
little.
like him because you're a card collector.
He's a possession receiver. I opened cards from
2012.
wasn't he an 11?
No, he was
11.
2012.
Okay,
In that
'cause-
Inception, chasing Andrew Luck. I got so many Sanu autographs.
yeah, right. And I just like him as a possession receiver. He's more of a football guy than
Isaiah
a fantasy
Peed.
guy. Yeah,
How many Isaiah Pete autographs do you have?
I got peed on quite a bit.
Oh, man.
But I like the Cincinnati. I like the Cincinnati offense this week, especially their passing game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have,
Yeah.
you've been able to beat
there's
through the air.
another team I've been able to watch a lot of is the Steelers, and they have a bad habit of putting James Harrison, great leader, great defender, great mind, but they've been putting him on tight ends. And when you got a young, fast, strong, tall tight end like Tyler Eifert, sorry, James, I'm boring you.
No, it's,
So that's actually my start there. There's too many weapons for me to pick any of the receivers. But I like Tyler Eifert, and I've got him going in a number of my lineups. For the Steelers, I'm still Landry Jones hasn't decided who his targets are. Is Ben going to play? Is he not? I don't know. I'm not willing to commit.
yeah. I what I'm reading is that Ben is going to play.
Really?
That's what
Because I know he
that's what it's-
traveled, but
it's what it's leaning toward. If I just bring up the little thing, he practiced fully on Wednesday. They were saying last week was up in the air, but this is the week he was targeting. It's a division game. It's a home division game for the Steelers. You'd think that. I mean, they're. I think they are somewhat within striking distance. Yeah, they're 4-3. Bengals
Yeah.
are 6-0. So they're kind of within striking distance. I think this is a game the Steelers need to win this game more than the Bengals, which makes me think that if this is a game you'd rush Roethlisberger back, this would be the game to do it.
yeah. Well, if that's the case, I might switch, and I would say even at 8,300, Bell. I don't understand why Landry Jones and Michael Vick before him, why they weren't using Bell and Brown. They were using them some, but not using them as much. Hayward Bay got a bunch of targets that first Vick game. Marcus Wheaton was getting targets. Now you have Brown having to split with Bryant. But if Big Ben is back, I don't know. He knows how to use Bell as an outlet, and he's big enough that he requires a little more respect from the defensive line, so Bell's rushing game goes better, I think. I don't know. I might actually let me retract and say I would start Bell if I'd put him in my top three running backs if Big Ben is playing.
I like the Steelers' offense this week. It's an even line, and the over/under is 48. I would take the over on this game. I think a lot of points are going to get scored. I think Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are great options. I think Martavis Bryant's a great option.
He's just always a little too expensive for me at
Yeah.
that guaranteed production.
Me too. I like him. He's fun to watch. But yeah, they always price him right in that spot where I'm not too comfortable paying for it. And then he'll go out and catch, 3 catches for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. Two of those will be touchdowns.
Yeah.
So Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are blue chip stocks for me. I think you can play, especially when Ben Roethlisberger is playing. I took a gamble on Antonio Brown last week and it paid off because he's just that good. He runs all the routes. KC is a bad defense, so it was a smart. It was for me. It was a smart pick. I thought.
I'm getting
But
excited
yeah,
because I'm looking ahead now.
let's move on ahead. We got our
Titans.
picks. Yeah, Titans at
Uh,
Texans.
Texans. I'm not excited about the Titans.
There is
There's
no
two teams.
line. There's no line. There's no over under set on this game. Las Vegas does not want you putting your money, your hard earned money, towards this contest. Please bet on other games. Is what they're saying. Don't even bet. Don't even watch.
Oh, it's going to be a Texans blowout.
You think so?
Start Brian Hoyer, start Nate Washington, sit DeAndre Hopkins. The people that
Wow.
really knew, and I apologize because this is one of my favorite things to look at, is recent targets, not overall targets. And I missed Nate Washington last week. I had a feeling, and I ended up plugging in the wrong. I plugged in the tight end Fedorovics. I had a feeling. I was like,
Iowa.
whoever is not Hopkins is going to do really well. And I could not. I didn't look at the depth chart and see Nate Washington. I was like, no, I'm not going to do strong. Anyways, all that to say, Washington in the 3 weeks before last week had been getting like 8 to 10 targets a week, just under the radar. And then all of a sudden last week he explodes. There's no danger of Brian Hoyer getting sat for Ryan Mallett because he just got cut. It's perfect. And the Titans got their secondary banged up. Jason McCourty got banged up, and the other two guys have been banged up. And so when you're in that situation, you're going to double DeAndre Hopkins because you're like, I'm not going to get burnt by him. And Hoyer and Washington have a connection, and Washington's 3,600 in DraftKings. Do it.
I got burned
Run,
last
run
week by.
Freeman at 10,000 and Washington at 3,600. That's the Ivan style.
I like it. I got burned last week by Nate Washington in a head-to-head, and I saw one guy had him, and I was like, oh well, there's a win. And then Nate Washington goes off, and he looked great. Rewatching the game too. Hoyer found him. He threw him some good passes, and I like the pick. I don't know if I'm sitting DeAndre Hopkins. He has some great upside.
Bench.
He has some great upside every week. I'm going.
He's my flex bench player.
I would rather play Julio. I'd rather play Odell Beckham. I'd rather play Antonio Brown over DeAndre Hopkins.
You're like, go JPG telling you to bench DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm saying who I'd rather play.
Throw him in the can.
I'll say that I have him in both of my season-long leagues, and I will not sit DeAndre
This is
Hopkins.
DFS.
In DFS,
DFS does not
Sit
stand
it.
for DeAndre
I
Hopkins.
can't say don't play him, but I'm not using him this week. I am not using DeAndre Hopkins in any of my lineups this week.
So
I will say
Titans.
On the Titans, Zach Mettenberger.
Yeah, tell them, convince them like you convinced me. I ended up plugging in a tournament play based on what James told me before we started.
Houston, just looking at that game last week, Houston had a lot of issues with downfield tackles. You saw the Jarvis Landry play where he caught the ball on the sidelines and then ran back across the entire field, and people were just missing tackles. Richard Matthews, on his touchdown, they were missing tackles.
J.J. Watt's not in your secondary, Houston.
No, he sure isn't. And teams realize, oh, we just got to double and triple J.J. Watt, and then force Clowney to try to do something. So that's why I really like Kendall Wright this week, is because he's one of those shorter yards after the catch receivers who can catch a short pass and then beat you with his legs. And
5,900 in FanDuel.
And then on DraftKings he is sitting
Yeah, I got it.
at 51.
Yeah, 51.
So I like Kendall Wright a lot this week as a player that can beat the Houston secondary with his legs. He's probably
Which is,
what?
oh, I was just going to say, which is going to cause the Texans to have to throw the ball even more
Yeah,
to Nate Washington.
yeah. I don't think I'm super comfortable with any other Titans. I think Mettenberger's a great tournament play. He's $6,000 on FanDuel. On DraftKings he is 5,100. So cheap. And if you're betting against the Houston defense, Mettenberger's a good play.
So that takes us to 1 p.m. Jets at Raiders. Jets, do they have a hope?
Yes, I think they're going to win this game. They're going to bounce after that tough loss. They're favored -1 though in Oakland. The over/under is 44.5. I like this Jets defense so much. They're the number one ranked defense this season. They make plays. They make plays on the line. They make plays. Their linebackers make plays. Their secondary makes plays. I'd take the under at 44.5.
So you in an Ivory Jets stack?
I think I would be happy doing an Ivory Jet stack. The Oakland defense has been solid against running backs on the ground this season. They're allowing 3.7 yards per carry, 84 yards a game. So it's a decent run defense. I can't say I've watched a ton of Oakland games. They've had to face the Broncos. I know they played. I know they played against the Baltimore.
Chargers.
You saw what Danny Woodhead was able to do, catching and running the ball last week. So, yeah, I really like Chris Ivory. He was you had mentioned he was banged up a little bit. He was dealing with like a deep thigh bruise or something. So that'd be something to watch for. But I wouldn't shy away from Ivory. I'm putting Ivory in my lineups. I really like Eric Decker.
Yeah.
Oh, he might have been the thigh
Let me
bruise.
say he's the sore knee, not the
Sore
thigh
knee.
bruise. So experts play though almost across the board. Fitzpatrick and Eric Decker are getting plugged in to optimized lineups on the lineup optimizers. So be aware in tournaments you're going to be seeing a lot of that. But
Yeah.
that said, it might be a good stack. I am shying away from Brandon Marshall for life. I don't trust him. He lateraled away a first down that he had that caused a change in game tempo a couple weeks ago. Last week, his slow walk to the line ruined a really smart play with 15 seconds left and no timeouts, which was to go over the middle and shorten the field and then spike it. And if he had just shown a little hustle and awareness, we could have seen a tie go into overtime against the Patriots. So personal bias is keeping me away from Marshall and into Decker, but be aware that everybody else is into Decker as the slot guy that people really like.
Yeah. I'm taking Ivory and Decker from the Jets on the Raiders side of the ball. I'm not taking anybody.
Revis
Janikowski.
Island.
Yeah.
Revis Island is on Cooper. I have Crabtree in a couple lineups just because he actually sees more targets than Cooper every other game. So that's a positive. It's a tough matchup though.
Yeah. I like your Crabtree play as like a final fill-in guy who could get you some receptions, and then Janikowski if you want a kicker. But I'm staying away from the Oakland side of the ball. But we're moving on, and we're on the Seahawks at Cowboys. The final late game or late afternoon game on Sunday. The line is Seattle -7. Over under 41. Oh wow! So there's another low over under. I'd probably take the under in that game too. On the Seahawks side of the ball, there's nobody I'm really excited about. Jimmy Graham's he hasn't really been seeing a ton of attention or like you thought or like he did in New Orleans. Cowboys are decent against the tight end, 24 receptions, 211 yards, 1 touchdown.
Cowboys linebackers do a lot in the game, which is why my play for the Seahawks actually is Tyler Lockett, because I see them coming out with Graham and 3 wide receiver sets, and they've been saying all year, every week, oh, we want to work Tyler Lockett in more. And this is a week when you really want to spread the field against weak Cowboys defensive backs. Cowboys like leaving linebackers in coverage. And I think, and they're good enough that I don't go with Jimmy Graham in that lineup.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either.
That'll open up the field for Lockett.
I like Lockett. Marshawn Lynch is always worthy of consideration.
Joseph Randall.
Joseph, we're not going to go back to that well again, unfortunately. Dallas has an okay rushing defense, although they're giving up 4.2 yards a carry, 101 yards on the ground per game. Marshawn Lynch he's a blue chip player for me. He'll get the work if he's healthy, and he is, as what it looks like. I think he's back from that whatever they call that injury.
Deep thigh bruise.
Yeah, he probably had a deep thigh bruise or
What
something
they
like
all are.
that. Yeah. So yeah, Marshawn Lynch is probably who I want from the Seattle offense. Russell Wilson, we haven't seen a big game from him yet. He can do that. Like maybe he's the one who gets the quarterback sneak at the goal line and then runs for 75 yards and throws 2 touchdowns, and then there you finally get your good Russell Wilson week. I wouldn't bet on it. It might be a nice little tournament play though, because he's priced kind of around a lot of quarterbacks that have much more upside than him. But I'm using Lynch, and then I like the Lockett play.
What about Des Bryant? Do you take a gander on him?
Nope, I sure am not with Matt Castle as his quarterback. I sure want the only piece of the offense, Cowboys offense I like is Jason Witten. Seahawks haven't done that well against tight ends this season. They've been up 42 receptions, 549 yards, and 5 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. Witten is probably going to be the most targeted Dallas pass catcher in this game, and so I like Witten.
So Sunday night we have two teams coming off a bye, the Packers and the Broncos, two undefeated teams, two teams with washed up quarterbacks. What do you think?
Well, I don't know how washed up Aaron Rodgers is.
Aaron Rodgers is a fool.
Although I know his receiving core is getting more washed up by the day. They're going to miss Montgomery. He's
We're
got.
seeing Devontae Adams return, but with some ankle hesitation still.
I like Adams. I don't know if this Broncos defense is good though.
Do or do not. There is no like.
That's true. So the line is Green Bay -3, over under is 45.5. I don't know who I would pick in this game.
I
to
got a
win.
big sit everything.
You just sit in
Sit
everything.
everyone. Sit everything.
My play is probably Ronnie Hillman. I think he is the running back that Peyton Manning trusts the most. He's going to be in there for most of the work. Green Bay is giving up 4.7 yards per carry, 118.5 yards per game.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone still says the experts still pick CJ Anderson. This will be his week. This will be his week. But you're saying you see Hillman and Peyton specifically connecting.
I like it more. He's better in pass protection.
Which we're sure Peyton likes that.
Like I was saying, Peyton just doesn't have the arm, so like he'll need him in there to pass protect on plays. And Peyton, he's always constantly changing the play and looking at the defense and what it'll give him and everything. And they're not that high-powered offense anymore, so they really need to rely on the run. And so I think against a Green Bay defense that has been, their passing defense has been pretty decent. They're giving up a 73.4 QB rating to opposing quarterbacks so far this season, 56.8 completion percentage. I think if Denver wants to, this is more of a game flow prediction, but if Denver wants to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, you got to run it. And so they're going to be really focused on the run this game. And so Hillman is my bet. Although Emmanuel Sanders is the kind of receiver that runs the routes that Peyton Manning can throw to now with his dead arm or whatever he has. So he'd be more of a tournament play for me. But
He gets the targets. Him and Thomas both get the targets.
They get the targets, and Demaryius is he's still getting those targets. So, but I like Ronnie Hillman's the player I like the most from this game.
So then finally Monday night, Colts at Panthers, and I like that you mentioned this is my football savvy. Peyton Manning's switching up plays at the line, which we don't see a lot of quarterbacks do as much of. We don't see as many game generals anymore. And what shocked me about the Sunday night Panthers game is how much they rely on Cam Newton to actually call the plays at the line. He did an amazing amount of switching up the entire formation switches after they came to the line and called things out. Complete side note, that's just me being an overly buffoon, but he does have a horrible cadence in which he pretty much just says "hut" when he wants the ball. So it's not going to draw guys off sides or keep the defensive line on their toes, but they've really let him start managing games in an interesting way. So, anyways, there's my audition for Fox Sports. Who do you pick? Who do you got? Who looks good? Not the
Uh,
Colts.
the line is Carolina minus 7.5.
Oh,
Over
oh wait,
unders at 40.
Carolina.
Yeah, over unders at 46.5.
Gotta listen better.
On the Panthers, I really like Jonathan Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
He's been getting the work. The only problem is that he's got a lot of vultures at the goal line. Mike Tolbert and Cam Newton
And Cam Newton.
are definitely
4,100 in DraftKings.
yeah. I like that price a lot on DraftKings.
6,600 in FanDuel, which isn't bad. We know that FanDuel is always a little more expensive.
Yeah. The Colts are giving up 4.2 yards per carry, 122.7 yards per game on the ground so far this season. 8 rushing touchdowns. If I'm picking a player from Carolina, I'm going to pick Jonathan Stewart. I don't think Cam is a bad pick, but I really like Jonathan Stewart this week.
Cam is 8,000 at quarterback in FanDuel and 6,800 in DraftKings, which puts him right there with Rivers and Dalton in FanDuel. So he's generally up there. I see him. He could run for 70 yards this game. 75 yards.
Oh yeah.
So I like him this week, especially if you like keeping some PMR left for Monday night. Moncrief really fits in for me in that slot 2 wide receiver, just price wise. But that's about all that I go with on this. And Jonathan Stewart, you already said it, so I don't need to. But his price is so good, and he's there's this thing with these slightly older running backs that have really resurged this year, and he's one of them that's running like a young guy.
He's always just had the problem of playing behind D'Angelo Williams, and then when Cam came along, just having people to take away his touchdowns. Because really, if he had scored touchdowns, he's only got, let's see, this season he has scored 2 touchdowns on the ground this season, and that's it. That's really what's been holding Jonathan Stewart back. So
Yeah, you know what he's good for, and this he helped me a lot 2 weeks ago with this. He's really good in those smaller games. So if you
Yeah.
take Sunday late through Monday, he's a great play for the price.
Okay, yeah,
You know,
and that's
'cause
a good
he's
point.
he's going to put up between 12 and 15 points at a very cheap price. At 4,100, the general rule is take their number, multiply it by 2, and then take out the zeros at the end. At 4,100, he's really worth 8.2 points. I'm sure he's going to get more than 8.2 points.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'd take the over on that.
So I like him. I like him there. Oh, and then who's your kicker? You always pick a Monday night
That's
kicker.
right. I like a Monday night kicker, especially if I'm in a head-to-head or a smaller tournament or a double-up, and I need to get a piece of Monday night. Now, I have a lot of Stewart shares this week, so I'm not going to be totally married to a kicker on Monday night. But
You're backing out of your strategy already.
well,
James.
again, we're recording this on Wednesday, so we have a lot of time. Graham Gano at 4,700 on, FanDuel's the only one that does a kicker. Or Vinatieri at 48. I'd probably take Gano.
All-time leading scorer in the NFL, right? Isn't that what Vinatieri is? Or he's like right up there.
Oh, yeah, he is, yeah.
You'd go with Gano.
I would go with Gano. Yep. For $100 cheaper, yep.
You got to save that. Got to save that $100.
I know, just in case I want to go. Defense is really tough this week. Like, you really got to pay up if you want a good defense. I don't like a lot of the cheaper matchups. So, to save some money, even $100, you might have to do it. I'm gonna go with. The what's his name? Gano over Vinatieri. Yeah.
And we promise it's the last time we'll spend 4 minutes talking about kickers. But God,
yeah.
it's fun. So real quick, NBA season started last night. Some people regard tonight as the official opening, though this
Yeah.
might not go up until tomorrow, so might be old news by then. But yeah, Wednesday night, NBA season's open. How'd you do yesterday?
I did great. I only played one game on DraftKings. It was the beginner $5 double up. Did not place in that one, but on FanDuel, did I say DraftKings for that first one? Hope I did.
Yeah.
But on FanDuel, I won all of my matchups. I did the big $5 double up, and then I just did two head to heads, so a total of $8 entered. And I won. Do the math. 10, 11, 12, 14, $15. But I'm just getting into the NBA. Like I said earlier in this podcast, I lost. I made a stupid entry when my first FanDuel game ever.
Hmm.
So I'm just playing head to heads and double ups so
It's
far
interesting.
in
Read
the
the
NBA.
rules because
Yes.
FanDuel and DraftKings have very different pricing. And we were just
Yes.
talking about this today. DraftKings gives you 1 point per point. FanDuel gives you 2 points per field goal and 3 points per three-pointer made. That said, in DraftKings, you get an additional zero point 0.5 per three-pointer made because it's based on the points, not on field goal versus three-pointer. Also, then the turnovers are less costly in DraftKings. They're negative zero point 0.5. They're negative a whole point in FanDuel. And you get double double and triple double bonuses in
And
DraftKings.
those are big.
So, which doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means read your rules, build your strategy around the rules. A great defensive player is actually worth as much as a really good offensive player.
It can be.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
want those.
Drummond last night put up 50 points, from 19 rebounds and 4 blocks or something, and then 20 points. So,
Well, good. Well, yeah. Well, we'll. I'm in some games tonight. I'm still eligible to play in beginner games for both NFL and NBA on DraftKings, so I will continue to do that.
mhm.
FanDuel, I have a lot of head to heads. I was able to find some good head to heads, and I'm running that double up again. So yeah, it's. I'm excited for tonight. Excited for the season. Anything else you want to add or say or contribute
No,
before
just
we
make
sign
sure you
off?
follow us on Twitter at Fool Duel. We're gonna try and do some promotion stuff, get you guys a chance to win some free stuff also.
That'd be great.
And we're give us some feedback on the episodes too. Leave a comment on YouTube, leave a comment on SoundCloud. Do it all.
Yeah,
Engage us so that we know what to do better for you guys because we're excited about this. We enjoy doing it.
that's our goal is to get better every week. So thanks for sticking with us through these early podcasts. We're just going to get better every week, and we'll talk to you next time.